The departure of a 400-episode veteran from a television institution like NCIS is rarely a sudden event, but rather a carefully orchestrated narrative, a passing of the torch that is woven into the fabric of the show's mythology long before the final scene fades to black. For Mark Harmon's Leroy Jethro Gibbs, the exit was the culmination of a journey that began not in the season he left, but years earlier, meticulously layered into the character's DNA. When Gibbs finally found his peace in the freezing waters of Naktok Bay, Alaska, in the season 19 episode, Great Wide Open, it felt both shocking and inevitable to the millions who had watched him for over 18 years and 400 episodes. This was not a decision made in haste, it was a narrative built upon a foundation of loss, legacy, and the quiet understanding that even the most unshakable leader must eventually find a new path. For an actor who had been the face of the world's most watched drama for nearly 2 decades, Harmon's exit was a masterclass in long-form storytelling, a reward for an audience that had tracked Gibbs's journey from a broken man to a found family leader, and finally, to a soul seeking solace from the ghosts that had haunted him for a lifetime. The setup for Gibbs's exit was so intricately tied to his character's history that it required looking back to move forward. The show's 400th episode, Everything Starts Somewhere, was a direct reward to the fanbase, a love letter that revealed the origins of Gibbs and his deep, foundational friendship with Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard. In this flashback-heavy milestone, viewers saw a young Gibbs, played by Harmon's real-life son Sean, on the precipice of his life-changing decision to marry Shannon, the wife and daughter whose brutal murders would define his entire existence and fuel his relentless pursuit of justice. This episode wasn't just a nostalgic trip, it was a crucial piece of the puzzle, reminding the audience of the profound trauma that made Gibbs who he was. It showed the genesis of his moral code and the origin of the rule-obsessed, stoic leader who would one day leave it all behind. By highlighting the love he lost, the 400th episode planted the seed for his eventual departure, suggesting that the only way for Gibbs to truly find closure was to return to a simpler life, far from the violence that had consumed him. Showrunner Stephen D. Binder crafted this episode as a celebration of the show's history, but also as a psychological deep dive into Gibbs's psyche, explaining his difficulty with relationships and setting the stage for the emotional release that would come a season later. However, the exit of a 400-episode veteran is not just a narrative event, it is a seismic shift in the very fabric of a production. Harmon was not just the star, he was the executive producer, the on-set leader who had famously fought to maintain the show's quality and working conditions, even butting heads with original creator Donald Bellisario to the point where CBS chose Harmon over the show's founder. His departure, therefore, was not merely a creative decision but a structural one that had been anticipated and carefully managed. The groundwork for life after Gibbs was laid with the calculated introduction of his successor, FBI agent Alden Parker, played by Gary Cole. The showrunners, with Harmon's likely blessing, knew they couldn't simply replace Gibbs with a clone. Parker was explicitly designed to be the anti-Gibbs. As Cole himself stated, "I'm not trying to be Gibbs," and the writers ensured that distinction was clear. Parker was more verbal, more open to technology, and while he admired Gibbs's willingness to break rules, he was content to bend them, a stark contrast to Gibbs's immutable, "my way or the highway" philosophy. This was a crucial setup to ease the transition, allowing the show to continue without the weight of trying to replicate a legend. The setup was so thorough that when McGee was offered the lead role, he turned it down, articulating the unspoken truth that, "I am not Gibbs," a line that validated the character's legacy and made the arrival of a new leader feel organic rather than forced. While the focus of the 400-episode veteran's exit is squarely on Gibbs, it's worth noting that the show has repeated this careful setup with other long-standing characters, reinforcing that it is a recurring strategy in the *NCIS playbook. Following the tragic passing of David McCallum, the show honored his 20-season legacy as Ducky by weaving his memory and spiritual presence into pivotal moments. Similarly, in its milestone 500th episode, All Good Things, the series orchestrated the exit of Rocky Carroll's director Leon Vance, a character who had appeared in nearly 400 episodes and directed many more. Much like with Gibbs, Vance's death was not a random act of violence, it was a heroic send-off, a final act of sacrifice to save the agency he loved, complete with a moving reunion with Ducky in the afterlife. Carroll's exit was framed as a defining moment, a real send-off, that blended high-stakes action with emotional callbacks to his character's history. This pattern of honoring a character's full journey, giving them a meaningful conclusion that services both the narrative and the actor's legacy, underscores that these exits are meticulously planned, treating the actors and their characters with the gravitas of a 400-episode journey. Ultimately, the setup for Mark Harmon's exit was a testament to his character's enduring appeal and the show's understanding of its audience. It wasn't about killing off Gibbs in a blaze of glory, but about giving him the one thing he had been chasing for 18 seasons, peace. The final image of Gibbs, smiling and fly fishing in his waders in Alaska, was a quiet, powerful conclusion to a story that began with a man shattered by loss. It was a narrative choice that respected the character's past while allowing the show's future to move forward without him. The introduction of Gary Coles Parker, the deft handling of McGee's ascension within the team, and the continued presence of Harmon as an executive producer all signaled a seamless transition, one that had been in the works for years. The 400th episode had already shown as the beginning, the 19th season simply showed as the end. By setting up his exit as a personal journey of healing rather than a professional retirement, NCIS allowed Gibbs to leave on his own terms, ensuring that the 400-episode veteran's legacy would endure, even as the team he built continued to solve cases without him. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more videos.